Hi. So I recently put up a poll here asking what you would like to see in my next video. Majority of you were interested in a deeper look at the influences behind my personal style and aesthetic. So in today's video, I'm going to go into that. But first of all, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone for your lovely comments on my last video. I was truly touched and overwhelmed by your kindness and your support, and I appreciate it more than I can say, so thank you so much. When it comes to my style, I am heavily influenced by my favorite books, films, and music. Some of these influences might be quite obvious, but I want to take a moment here to go into why they resonate with me. I'm often asked how I would describe my aesthetic, and while I don't usually like to label myself because everything that I put together is really just me, the term I usually land on is vampire librarian. Basically, I like to imagine how a vampire might dress if they spent their centuries working in an ancient library. And there are two specific books that have really influenced this idea, which I'm going to get to shortly. Of course, my style is also quite seasonal. I don't always dress like a vampire librarian, especially in summer when it's very hot. And I don't take it too seriously every single time I get dressed because I do have various states of being, ranging from being incredibly dressed up to very, very casual. I'd say the vampire librarian term is perhaps more evident in my room and the decor that I've surrounded myself with. In terms of eras, the Victorian period is undoubtedly my favorite and a primary source of inspiration for me. If you followed me for a while, you've likely heard me mention this many times. Much of my wardrobe and my home is directly influenced by the Victorian era. I've always been drawn to the specific silhouettes of that time, as well as more niche motifs like disembodied hands and the lover's eye, which can be found in accessories and jewelry. But beyond the incredible clothing, I'm also drawn to the peculiar macabre fascinations of that time. So things like mourning rituals and just a general respect for death, which of course stems from the harsh realities of life back then, including poverty, disease, and a very rigid social morality. This period is also incredibly special to me because it gave rise to the Gothic literature that I love so much. But when it comes to dressing more casually, I'm really inspired by avant-garde fashion, particularly with the work of designers like Yohji Yamamoto and Anne de Moulemista. You may have noticed red is really the only pop of color in my wardrobe because I prefer a monochromatic palette, and I find myself really drawn to all black outfits in particular. I admire these types of designers for their focus on silhouettes rather than trends, and they play with such interesting layers and textures as well, which allows even a casual look to feel more intentional. When it comes to movies and series that have really inspired me, there are a lot, but I'm going to focus on just a couple here that have been really important to me, and yes, they are all set in the Victorian era. The first is Guillermo del Toro's 2015 film Crimson Peak. Visually, this movie is so perfect with the incredible sets and of course the costumes. I think it's also the perfect Gothic story with just the right amount of ghost gore and twists. It follows the aspiring author Edith, who is a character that I relate to a lot, and after she marries a mysterious British aristocrat, she moves into his creepy, crumbling ancestral home, only to discover that it conceals some very sinister secrets. The scene with Edith in her beautiful white nightgown, where she's holding the candelabra and walking through the halls of this manor, just really speaks to me, and this particular scene has influenced a lot of my work. In fact, I would say all of my posts are in some ways inspired by Crimson Peak. A series that has had a really profound influence on me is Penny Dreadful, which first aired in 2014. At this time, I was very deep in my Tumblr era, as a lot of people were, and I remember discovering this series there and just feeling an immediate connection to it because it contains everything that I love, including the atmosphere of dark Victorian London, the supernatural, and a truly brilliant storyline. This Gothic horror series also masterfully weaves together some of my favorite classics, including Dracula, Frankenstein, and Dorian Gray. It follows a group of characters as they navigate a world of supernatural threats. But beyond the plot, it was the design of this series that really stayed with me. My own antique desk was really inspired by Vanessa's writing desk, and the dark curated aesthetic of Dorian's gallery wall became a major influence on how I've approached my own home decor. Finally, and this will come as no surprise, is Francis Ford Coppola's 1992 adaptation of Dracula. As most of you know, Dracula is my favorite book ever. I won't go into the details of why it holds that top spot for me, but I do have a dedicated video on here about my favorite Dracula related books where I do dive into that, so I'll link that if you are interested in learning a bit more. While this isn't the perfect adaptation of the novel, the atmosphere and the visuals of this film are, in my opinion, unmatched. Costume designer Eiko Ishioka created some of the most breathtaking pieces in cinematic history, from Dracula's crimson armor, which inspired my helmet bag here from La Femme Noire, to Lucy's iconic otherworldly funeral gown, which has kind of inspired my outfit today. I don't think there is a single bad costume in this entire film, and every frame in this movie is just beautiful. Getting into the most important influences for me, which are books. While there are too many to include in this one video, I'm going to focus on just a few that have had a major impact on me. I truly would not be who I am today without Anne Rice. I started reading the Vampire Chronicles in high school, and I've been completely enamored with her characters and her writing ever since. The majority of these books center around our fabulous Brat Prince Lestat, who is originally from 18th century France, and he's one of my favorite characters of all time. He's the perfect morally grey anti-hero. Between seeing Queen of the Damned when it was released and then watching the Interview with the Vampire film, I was then led to the books. Then I, of course, read Dracula after this, and that just solidified my years-long fascination with the undead. Like many people, I felt a little out of place as a teenager, but clearly it wasn't a phase. I really owe it to Anne Rice and Bram Stoker for introducing me to the romantic, classic type of vampire that I try to emulate in everything that I do. Going off that, I want to talk about the two books that have specifically influenced my vampire librarian style. First off is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. I think that if I was a book, this would be me. It's the perfect blend of gothic and dark academia with a mysterious, almost cozy vibe. This story follows a narrator who discovers a strange book in her father's library, and then she embarks on this quest to uncover the mystery behind it. I love how it blends history and folklore with the legacy of Vlad Tepes and, of course, Count Dracula. Really nostalgic, and my favorite time of the year to read it is during autumn, and I like to imagine I'm in the mountains somewhere by a fire. This mix of academic life and ancient tomes with the supernatural has really inspired a lot of the things that I create. And of course, we can't discuss dark academia without talking about Donna Tartt's masterpiece, The Secret History. I've talked so many times about why I adore this book. Donna Tartt's writing alone is just incredible. This story follows Richard Papin, who joins a small elite class studying ancient Greek under an eccentric professor. What I love most about this book is how layered it is, and it can resonate differently with different readers based on their perception. Aside from the story, the student style is described in such wonderful detail with things like blaze blazers, tailored coats, neckties, and crisp shirts. Every autumn, I find myself wanting to become a character from The Secret History, but a vampire version. I also want to talk about the influence of manga and anime, which is really important to me. Hellsing by Kota Hirano and the Vampire Hunter D novels by Hideyuki Kikuchi are two huge influences for me. And again, these are things I discovered when I was younger, and at that time I was on a mission to consume as much vampire media as possible. I love Vampire Hunter D so much that I actually have a tattoo of him. There are over 40 novels, so I'm still on my journey of working my way through them, but this is where Vampire Hunter D originated. The series follows D, who is a Dhampir. He's half human, half vampire, and he travels through this far future post-nuclear Earth, which is ruled by the terrifying nobility of vampires. Anime film Bloodlust has exactly the kind of vampire visuals that I love, and the illustrations by Yoshitaka Amano are absolutely stunning. I do have a very old Vampire Hunter D art book with illustrations by him that inspires me constantly. And then there's Hellsing by Kota Hirano. If I had to choose one manga or anime, this is it. This is my favorite ever. This series follows the secret Hellsing organization as they combat supernatural threats in England. And their greatest weapon is a vampire named Alucard, and if you put his name backwards, you'll know exactly who he is. Honestly though, Alucard is my ideal Dracula. He's everything that I want this character to be, right down to his voice. And I think that shows how high my standards for Dracula are because he's 2D. The character designs and the general visuals of this series are perfect. Of course, there are some female anime and manga characters that have inspired my style. The two biggest ones for me are, of course, Junji Ito's Tomie and also Yukari or Caroline from Paradise Kiss. Finally, I want to touch on the musical artists who continually inspire me. While my favorite genres are ones like post-punk, dark wave, gothic, and metal, I also find myself constantly returning to the soundtracks that I love from my favorite movies and also games to set the mood, because I listen to a lot of classical and instrumental music as well, especially when I'm reading or working. When it comes to specific artists though, bands like the Sisters of Mercy and also The Cure are essential for me because they carry that quintessential gothic atmosphere that feels so timeless, and they've created some incredible albums. On the heavier side, bands like Nine Inch Nails and Ghost, who are two of my favorite artists, have been massive influences for me. They are effectively always at the top of my Spotify Wrapped every year, and I think Ghost in particular captures that theatrical, macabre energy perfectly, especially through their music videos and their incredible stage design. I've been lucky enough to see all of these artists live, and they were all life-changing experiences for me. Music for me is the final layer of my aesthetic. It's the soundtrack to my life, I guess. I also put a lot of thought into choosing the right music for any videos or posts I create because it's the most powerful tool that I have to help convey the mood that I am trying to share. So that is a look into the world that informs my style. I don't believe in following a rigid set of rules or sticking to one specific aesthetic. For me, it's kind of all about the synergy between a line of poetry from a well-loved book, a haunting silhouette from a favorite movie, and the atmosphere of a favorite song. And I think when all of those things are combined, that's where I find my own true sense of self. Of course, my aesthetic is constantly evolving, just as I am. And I think that's the beauty of personal style because it's a collection of everything you love. I'd also love to hear from you what your specific influences are that have helped shape your own style. If there's a particular book or a movie that completely changed you, I'd love to chat with you in the comments below about it. Thank you so much for watching this and for all the kindness that you've shown my channel. I'll see you in the next one.